Welcome to the Film Mechanics Screenwriting Podcast with Deri Tyton. Hey everybody, how you doing today? I wanted to take the opportunity to talk to you about the next components in the film mechanics screenwriting process, theme and genre. Basically, after you have covered the telling of your story in 10 words or less, discovering the point of view for whom you're telling the story from, and you have created your major dramatic question, you want to know your theme. Now, what is theme and why is it important? Before we begin, let me say you and I are engaging in the theme right now. The theme is purpose. You came to the podcast because you was working to serve your purpose as a storyteller, and I am a conduit for it. Yet, it's entirely up to us to be clear about what the message of the purpose is, right? So that's what a theme is. It's the message within the framework of your screenplay. Now, there are countless times where a student will contact me about a certain movie and say, "Where's the theme stated in this movie, Deri?" In which I would probably bust out the Zoom, pull up the movie, and show them where it's stated within the first 5 to 10 minutes. All movies don't tell us the theme in the first 5 to 10 minutes. You might have to dig deeper and see what they're showing us. Because it's not what you tell us in the film, it's what you show us. So let's say a prime example is like Crooklyn by Spike Lee. The theme isn't necessarily stated, more so as the film is a coming-of-age film about family, truth, girlhood. And most of Spike's films deal with a truth. Pick a movie. Any movie from Spike Lee, you will see how he elevates the perspective of the truth within the film. She's Gotta Have It. What is it about? A woman living in her truth. Do the Right Thing. What's that about? A guy in a community that has to face the truth about the racist reality black people are faced with every day. I could go on, but you get the point. He works with the premise that truth brings understanding. When watching these films, you don't feel like you're watching a preachy film that tells us, "Oh, that film is about truth," right? You don't necessarily get that feeling, but you know that's what he kind of delivers his perspective in, truth. So let's look at another filmmaker, like screenwriter, Quentin Tarantino, who writes about revenge. And in each of his films, he deals with the main theme of revenge. It could be Jackie Brown, Django, Kill Bill, The Hateful Eight. I mean, all of them deal with revenge in some capacity or another, right? Although some writers find this to be very hard to understand, but it's not. See, it's all about life's perspective. How do you live life? Why do you live life that way? What experiences do you have that have helped to get you through a down moment or understanding of life? So we can look at some themes like what you put in is what you get out. Am I enough? Or better yet, I am enough. All money ain't good money. Success versus failure. Death versus life. It could be a quote, an anecdote, an adage, an affirmation, a scripture, or your idea about things that is happening in the world. I mean, sometimes you're looking at things from the thematic point of like poverty, politics, big business versus small business. What are your thoughts about that? Love and loss, motherhood. These are real themes that people write about every single day in their films. Like whenever I think about motherhood, like speaking of motherhood, I got to tell you about this movie India put me up on, right? The Joy Luck Club, which is a powerful movie. I mean, Amy Tan wrote some stuff up in that, in her book. Now I don't want to give any spoilers if you haven't seen it, but that particular film is the premier definition of what motherhood is all about. Hope, choices, truth, lies, and secrets. Like those are the main themes that resonate within the framework of that particular story, that film. I mean, there's no short of sub themes in this film. Yet she sends the message that it is that motherhood is difficult. Like the picture of mothering always looks saintly, but the film shows how rough and unappreciated the job is. Themes don't generally need to be highlighted in your writing. There's a beauty in writing with your perspective and your ideas, placing a theme in the character's actions, the descriptive scenes, and basically throughout the story. I'm not saying to have visible, coordinated, like thematic references, but be purposeful in your writing. So, what is theme? Theme is the message. Where does it go? Well, according to Blake Snyder's book, Save the Cat, and his story developing beat sheet, it should go within the first 5 minutes of your screenplay. The irony is, a Hollywood producer will ask you what your film is about. And it's your job to infuse your theme within the framework of your story. For example, imagine walking in a producer's office and pitching The Color Purple by the great Alice Walker. Albeit, it's based on a book just like the Joy Luck Club, like many of the books we hear about that they have adapted to films. But you'll have the opportunity to pinpoint that it took place during the Jim Crow era about two sisters who were separated. The woman's children, the main character's children, were taken from her, and she's married off to a man who's a father to three other children. What's interesting in this film is it's about black women who deal with sisterhood, parenthood, love, and marriage. These are the universal themes that all races can relate to. The best kind of theme to write about, right? Those are those universal themes that can be understood by anyone who watches or reads your film. Never sell yourself short when picking and using themes in your work because people are looking to see themselves in your script or your film. Like once you have stated your theme that you want to write about, it's time to identify your genre. So genre is like based on the categorization of your film in the film industry. And generally there are two types of genre. Now you will hear more about this, but generally there are two types of genre: drama and comedy. And everything else falls under that. And in the Film Mechanic Workbook, which is my book, I discuss the importance of knowing your genre because it helps not only in the categorization, but the marketing and the distributing of your film. Now, let's look at a couple of examples of what genre is, right? You want to write a love story about a mortal and a zombie. How do we classify this film? What about if you wanted to write a film about a young boy raised by wolves? Now, how do we classify that film, right? Because there's no classification in the stories that I'm talking about. What about a man who gets out of prison and goes back in time to change his life? See, based on the genre you choose to write, it will determine how the script or the story will be received. So let's go back. Let's look at that again. The zombie love story can be a sci-fi drama or a sci-fi comedy. The Boy Who Raised by Wolves can be a period piece, a biography, or an animated comedy. Or The Man Who Goes Back in Time is definitely sci-fi, but it also could be paired with a western or a spoof. See, there are times when genres are combined to create what is called those remarkable pieces of work, like Little Shop of Horrors, that film on Netflix called Bright. Like, I really love that film. That's a dope film. What about the Monty Python and the Holy Grail, right? Which is adventure and fantasy, comedy, and parody, right? Like, that thing has like all of that stuff in it. How do we know that these films are categorized the correct way? That's a great question. Or better yet, I'm going to ask an even better question. Why do we know these films are distinctive to their genre characteristics? Well, that's based on genre conventions. Genre conventions are the commonality that each genre lends itself to. Drama is written with real characters, with serious intrapersonal conflicts in mind, right? Comedy is written with exaggerated characters, where props, gags, and like diegetic noises can be heard, right? So What we should know is each subgenre has their own genre conventions. Westerns will have cowboys and outlaws and wilderness, farms, sheriffs, horses, that whole feeling of the old West. Thrillers, think about a thriller. It'll have a protagonist who's chasing an antagonist, but the antagonist makes it so personal that it starts to entrap the protagonist, which makes it a thriller. Will the protagonist ever find out who did it? Will the protagonist die before they find out who did it? That's the thriller, right? Which gives the tone, which is typically dark, most likely suspenseful, because that's what we're looking for. Wait, hold on. Somebody just said, back it up, Deri. What is tone? When I mention tone, I'm not talking about the highs and the lows where the film can take us, but how the film feels visually, how the screenplay reads visually. 9 times out of 10, you need to be able to use words that capture the tone of your screenplay. Let's say a movie like Something About Mary, right? Which is a romantic comedy. That's the genre. That gives us these bright colors, exaggerated characters, the emotional makeup for a love that was lost and been reunited. But the tone of the film also tells us that it's light, it's funny, it's witty, it's charming. So you got to look at all of that stuff, right? So the theme of lost love is reflective in this comedy, right? That's what we're looking at. That has these really funny moments. And if you were to look at the writers of Something About Mary, right? And remember, let's go back to theme, something I talked about. Like normally you're going to write things that is close to you. So the writers of Something About Mary, which is the Farrelly brothers, you could see a running theme throughout all of their films. Like all of their films are definitely quirky. I'm about to name a couple of them, and you tell me that all of these don't have the same themes, right? Shallow Hal, Dumb and Dumber, Me, Myself, and Irene. You will start to see a pattern of their perspectives about these relationships that they have. And those relationships deal with love, acceptance, breakups, togetherness. I mean, it gets deep sometimes when you're writing, but this is about as deep as I can get today. So that's all the time we have on the topics of theme, genre, and tone. I hope you got something out of it. Thanks for listening. We appreciate your support. Be sure to leave a review and a comment and share with your closest screenwriting friends. Stop by www.derityton.com for the Film Mechanics Screenwriting Workbook, and we'll see you next episode. Have an awesome day. Peace.